What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? They learned important lessons on the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. This is true for both men and women. Ernst & Young found that a whopping 94% of women holding a C-suite position played sports. Their wins and losses shaped their habits and who they would become. Join me on my journey to sit with some of the brightest executives in the world as we discuss how sports shape their professional trajectory. In partnership with Chief Executive Magazine, the voice of America's CEO community. I'm your host, Don Yeager, and this is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Michelle Snow. Michelle started her entrepreneurial journey when she was just 11 years old, trying to provide for her family by taking some of the pressure off of her ailing mother. When she stumbled across what she now calls the game changer formula. She would go on to receive more than 150 academic and athletic scholarship offers, becoming the first woman to dunk in a nationally televised college basketball game, became drafted in the first round of the WNBA, and after retirement was inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame in 2018. During a stellar 16-year pro career, she would be mentored by 3 billionaires who would drastically change her perspective on life, business, and more. She uses all of these lessons today as an executive at Nike.
You're only by yourself because you didn't bring anyone with you. I want to listen to their story. I want to understand who they are, where they come from. You talk about that for a little while, and then you also bring it into corporate America. And I always ask them, how can I make your job easier? This is my role. This is your role. How do I accommodate you? Never ask about you, ask about them. How can I make your job easier?
Michelle, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and have a great conversation. We've already kind of had some intro talks, so this is going to be a lot of fun.
You know, we had the chance to connect at Entrecon, a Pensacola event, your hometown there.
Yes.
I learned so much about your amazing journey, just soaking it up, all that you were offering. Parents, both in the military, and 2 brothers and 2 sisters. You shared there on that stage that growing up in a trailer park in Pensacola shaped your approach to everything you would do from there forward. Tell me how that experience shaped you.
You got to learn to make lemonade out of lemons. You got to take whatever you have and use it. So you become really resourceful. You learn how to make every dollar stretch. You learn how to make everything as efficient as possible. When you learn those things, you begin to kind of outpace those who've never learned those skill sets yet.
So it's interesting. Some people take those experiences and they use them and they harden them in some ways. Others use them as that's an experience I don't want to go through again. You clearly took the more positive approach. Is that just your nature, or was that something that you saw in someone or that you learned?
It comes from yin yang. That's exactly where it comes from. I think we both have both viewpoints. It's which one do we choose to exude? When people say, what is your biggest regret? I said, it would be having any regrets. Why do I keep everything so positive? It gets heavy. It's draining mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. It begins to manifest in your body when you harden things. The body dis-ease. That's what disease is. It's simply dis-ease in the body. I watched my mother pass away over 14 years. I didn't want to do that. That was the scariest thing to me. It was like, listen, let things go. Allow them to teach you lessons, because nothing comes to break you. It comes to make us stronger. Every single lesson, we can be the victim and tell everybody how poor I was and how bad life was to me and poor me, poor me. How does that help me? How does that make people want to help you? It doesn't.
Right.
When you say, listen, here's what I was able to overcome, now people want to listen because they want to understand how to do that in their own lives. Because one thing we all have in common, obstacles, things that we need to overcome. So for me, it was changing that viewpoint and realizing that I had the ability to control everything in my life. And it's up to me to choose whether that's a positive or a negative as far as my perspective.
So it's not the absence of negative thoughts. I mean, they exist.
They exist.
You're choosing the positive ones.
Yes, I generally will say, what if, and then negative thought always jump to the forefront. I always followed it by what if positive statement. What if it works? What if I am worthy? What if I am good enough? What if I can't figure this out? What if there is a way? Now all of my thoughts change into positive ones that are geared towards a solution oriented answer.
Now, growing up, you loved basketball, which turned out to be a pretty good thing for you. But in high school, you grew 12 inches in 1 year, where you would grow to 6'5" tall. I just got asked, like, was that painful?
No, everyone asks me that. Did you have jumper's knee? Did you have problems and growing pains? And I go, obviously, I was meant for this to happen because no pain, no nothing. Between my junior high and going to high school, I just knew I had grown. I didn't realize I was 6'5". I came back to school and I was like, what happened to everybody else? Like, I'm just looking down, like, what in the world? Y'all didn't grow? And that's when I realized, like, wow, you went from point guard to center in a summer. And that was humbling. It was really humbling because now we wear fitted clothes, fitted jeans, everything's fitted, everything's long, you can get extra long, extra tall. That didn't exist back in my day, and it definitely didn't exist for women at all. So it was baggy men's jeans. Like I would try to find the smallest version of the men's jeans that was tall enough, and they were still baggy.
Mm.
So there was a self-esteem element that went into it as well as, okay, I'm wearing these baggy clothes that are made for men. Number one, why are there things not available for women? I'm glad we finally rectified that. But number two, what it does to a child's self-esteem. I have a lot of children come up to me, women who say, I'm tall. How do I deal with this and the self-esteem issues that they're dealing with? That was the biggest component of it. And once I owned that and said, I get to design who I am, and I had a mother who was always feeding me positive affirmations, it was like, you get to be who you want. Everybody likes long legs, all the men. And then I would hear the comments when I walked by, and I realized, like, oh, this isn't all bad. It's all in how I choose, once again, to see it.
So I had a growth spurt. I grew up in Hawaii. I am the haole, the white kid growing up in Hawaii among all my brethren from many, many other ethnicities. I actually had a period in which I grew 4 inches over the course of like a real quick window. Now, my sister had had a growth spurt the year before, and my mother had just sewed lace on the bottom of her pants. So I'm in the middle of this growth spurt, and yes, that lace finds its way to the bottom of my pants. Talk
Whoa.
about self-esteem issues, baby. Now you got to go fight your way out of school every day
Yes.
because it's either you're wearing high waters or you got lace on the bottom. My wife says that's why I'm a clothes horse today. I never want lace anywhere near me ever again.
I didn't think about that. That's probably why I buy every pair of long jeans I find.
That's right.
Everyone, I don't care if it's similar to a color I already have. I want it.
6 more, it's fine. They may run out of them one day.
Exactly. That's my fear.
So your high school team had a perfect 26-0 season, won the state championship. Obviously, it helps to have talent, but holding it all together is never as easy as it looks. And I know there was a lot of learning from Coach Allison Davis. Is there a lesson from Coach Davis that you still use today?
There's a ton of them. I called it my second mom in high school. Right before EntreCon, that's who I was talking to, is Coach Davis. I talk to her every time I go home because she's always instilling things in me.
That's awesome.
As I came into high school, looking at the different schools available, there's a health academy program at Pensacola High that I want to get into because my mother's ill. You know, every kid is, I'm going to save my mom. I'll just become a doctor. Same thing.
Right.
And so I entered into the program and I was like, well, they got a basketball team. Let me go meet the coach. I walk over and I tell her I'll be coming there soon, probably within a month or so. She goes, you should play for somebody. And then just kind of blows me off. Rude. That's what I'm thinking in my head. Like, wow, that was kind of rude. And I talked to her a little bit more and I'm like, well, I love playing basketball. I'm pretty good. And as you can see, I've had a huge growth spurt. And that's kind of what she was referring to with the, you should play for somebody. And she goes, well, we were 3-19 last year. And I was like, okay, I don't really care. We're still going to state, and I still want to go to state, and I'm still going to win state. I don't care. You got to work with what you got. Lemons to lemonade. That is my thinking. I probably annoyed her every day. She's so funny though, because it's like she's not even trying to teach the lesson. She's just sharing. And I think it's hilarious. Her way of motivating me was realizing that I had this mindset. So she would say, well, if you get here, let's focus on districts first. How about that? We get there first year, win districts. Get there second year, no, we're going deep into the regionals. Could have won state that year, but I wasn't ready. Just hadn't learned all the lessons. But there are a million lessons she taught me, from how to play, how to have character, and how to grow, how to have a growth mindset and always be working on the things that I talked about.
I read one of the things that she taught you on teaching you character was, here you are, best player, far and away, and she benched you.
Yes.
Tell us the story.
She did that many times. Which one was this?
Well, this one, apparently you tripped an opponent.
I did. I did.
You were the original Grayson Allen.
I got mad about something, and I put my foot out and tripped that player. And I mean, she couldn't even call the timeout or get me out of the game quick enough. Like, she was trying to grab me off the floor. And she said, you sit right here. We don't play like that. And you're not going to be that type of player on this team. And that resonated with me because I didn't care about tripping the person initially, because I was still trying to figure out what was wrong with it. We're trying to win by all costs. And she's like, no, you can win and have character. You can win and stand for something. I sat there for a minute and I was so disappointed, more not in what I did, but in disappointing her. That was really the biggest thing for me, is this is someone who's been where I want to be. She's been a college All-American. I need to be learning from her. And here I am making her mad. I don't want to create a gap between us. I just remember from that day forth, I was just like, whatever she's teaching, I'm listening.
Wow. And you're only 16 at that stage. So you would end up there in Pensacola, where a local legend is Roy Jones Jr.
Yes.
At one time considered pound for pound the greatest boxer on the planet. You argue that he went on to help shape your career. Tell me about how you met and what he taught you.
I remember we were trying to get money for me to go to a camp. Coach Davis was telling me, like, all of the collegiate coaches are here. If you can't do any camps, this is the one camp you got to figure out how to do. You got to hustle. And selling a little penny candy that I sold wasn't going to get me to that amount. So we went around and we talked to different people. We went to Emmitt Smith. We went to Roy. And I remember Roy was training in the gym, stops his workout, comes down, talks to me. And I'm sitting here, number one, like, man, pound for pound, the greatest in the world. This is Roy Jones. And he stops everything to come make a difference in my life. Walks me out to the car. My mom's explaining everything to him. She's one of the biggest players now in the country. She's trying to get to this camp. And he's like, yeah, I've heard a little bit about her. I know about Coach Davis. Goes to his car and just pulls out cash. No paperwork. My mom was like, well, we've heard from everyone else. We need to fill out paperwork. We got to wait 6 weeks. The camp is in like 2 weeks. He's like, don't worry about that, baby. And he hands me more money than I need. And I'm trying to hand him the money back. Like, I don't need all this. I just need this amount. He's like, you never sent a woman on the road without extra money in her pocket. Not only did he go above and beyond, he just went, who does that? And it said a lot about him. So I'm meeting all of these people who are extraordinary in their own way and who have a viewpoint that everything is limitless and anything is possible. It's just a matter of connecting yourself with those types of individuals. They say birds of a feather flock together. If you're hanging around people who demand more of you, you demand more of yourself. That's kind of what that lesson taught me. And it also got me to that camp and seen by the legendary Pat Summitt.
It's the value of associations, without question.
Yes.
What I also love is that you were impressionable and young in high school. He had made it, but you understood what it was going to take for you once you made it, that it's your responsibility to go pull someone else along with you.
Absolutely. That's a prayer that I actually said as I grew up in high school. I used to pray all the time and say, when I make it, I'm going to go back and get some others. I got to go back and get more, get as many as I possibly can.
You're now in business, climbing the ladder of success at Nike today. How are you reaching back to try to find that person that maybe just kind of needs a hand up?
Well, we just recently hired, I think, about 15 new people, and they also play basketball. And I reached out to all 15. Absolutely anything that you need, anything you need to talk through, walk through. We need to jump on a Zoom call. I'm available. I'm here. Never be afraid to ask. Ask as many questions as you can. You'll grow a lot faster. But leverage the people who are here, who are before you, who are in your area of expertise where you were hired. Listen to them, learn from them. It accelerates your growth and creates alliances, which you will need if you want to advance throughout the company. And I go, it's leveraging, and it's not using the person that's above you. They're pouring into you because the scariest thing is for you to get to the top and be by yourself. Brett Levin taught me this. You're only by yourself because you didn't bring anyone with you.
Mm, that is big.
In the corporate world, whether it's on a basketball court, you can have one person score 40, 50 points and still lose. Giannis last year in the playoffs versus Brooklyn. KD did everything right. He did absolutely everything right and was beaten by a team of 5 people who came, showed up, and just kept pounding and pounding away because one person will never beat 5 that show up together. Same in the corporate world. The more people you have behind you that are aligned and buying into that philosophy, the better your chances are of winning because anyone, even the giants and the legends, can be beat on any given night.
Mm. Michelle, by the way, I'm just taking pages of notes over here, scribbling like crazy, just getting nuggets, trying to think about maybe all the different ways that I'm going to use this conversation as part of my growth. You mentioned that camp, Roy Jones giving me the chance. Ultimately, you received an astounding 150 scholarship offers between academic and athletic, but you chose Tennessee. Great place. And Pat Summitt sees you. She's the bomb, right? I mean, it doesn't get any better. She's at the time the greatest coach in the sport. There isn't even a close second at that period. Tell me about your early meetings with Pat Summitt and the way she sought to understand what it is that was going to drive you, what you were really looking to achieve.
Once I committed there, got to campus the very first day, the Myers-Briggs test, a test that they give in corporate America all the time, which is a personality test. And it tells you kind of where you can push people in certain areas, where their weaknesses are, their strengths are, and it allows you to develop people faster, empower them by knowing how to push the right buttons. So by taking that test, she knew, I didn't know it at the time, but we were twins. We were both stubborn as they come, resilient, a lot of the same character traits. But at the time, I'm a young, impressionable kid. I don't know any better. She goes, "You're going to hate me for the next 4 years." And I'm taken back. Everyone who's made a difference in my life always makes me step back and look like, why would you say that? She said, "You're going to hate me for the next 4 years, but one day, if you stick it out for 4 years, you'll come back and you'll understand." I remember coming back 6 years from that moment and saying, "I love you and I appreciate you. Thank you for pouring into me. I've grown so much." She saw the introverted kid that would never get on this podcast and talk to you. I didn't want to talk. I would have my head down. I didn't look people in the eye. And that's the part she said I was going to hate. She was going to force me outside of my comfort zone. She would make me say grace if we had an event. She would make me speak in front of crowds. And she would tell me, "You just told me your dream is to be a businesswoman. How can you be a businesswoman if you won't look people in the eye? They will never trust you. You can't be fidgety. It looks like that's suspicious to most people." And I couldn't understand it at the time. And then she just kept pushing me until one day I grabbed the mic and was like, "I know you're going to make me say it. I'll just do it." And she was like, "Finally." I realized this was discomfort. And she was like, "You have to be comfortable in uncomfortability. Once you get there, you become a different person."
Yeah. When you talked about taking that Myers-Briggs test, you're a young, impressionable, just out of high school athlete, and you're taking this personality test, if you will, because she understood she couldn't lead you if she didn't know you.
Absolutely.
I mean, we can know you on the court or we can see certain things, but there's real value in those assessments and that ability to kind of dig in, learn people better. I love that.
The DISC profile is one of the most powerful profiles you can learn. It allows you to kind of talk to people, ask them questions, which is what Pat does. That's what they do in corporate America when they're interviewing you. They're figuring out where you fit on that team and what you bring to the table. what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Right.
And from there, you can now say, okay, I can push the D personality, that dominant personality, a little further than I can push someone that's more reserved.
It's funny. I've interviewed so many people over the years, players who have played for Coach Summitt, and almost none of them tell me about basketball lessons.
Life lessons.
It's life lessons.
Mhm.
It's really fascinating.
Yes.
But it's that idea that she poured into other people. You know, you mentioned like reaching out to all those people that play basketball that are just joining the company.
Mhm.
What are some business lessons we could take as growing leaders ourselves from what you learned from Pat Summitt?
The biggest thing Pat taught us is if you're on the basketball court, it should never be silent. We should always be communicating. Same goes in corporate America. It's a fast paced game. Even in the corporate world, things move really quickly. The way people had to adapt with COVID and the pandemic, things changed with how we work, where we work. So she would always tell us you have to always be communicating because things are always moving on the court and you have to be able to leverage each moment efficiently as possible. Screen on the right, watch your back, down screen, pass, ball, cut, rebound, outlet. You're always talking and each person is responsible for some part of that communication. Accountability, responsibility, communication, and being able to adapt. Sometimes you have to change what the initial play was and know how to adapt or how to read the defense. One of the things she taught us was to be coaches on the floor. I could tell you what defense that team was in. They're not in the zone, they're in a box and one, screen the one person that they're trying to ISO. It's learning things like that that make you more efficient. It's kind of like when you come into corporate America and you're learning how the company works. Once you learn that and you focus on how to develop yourself within that company, then you go to step 2, developing other people. And then you go to developing teams.
Right.
That's how you ascend that ladder. You will never be able to develop other people if you cannot communicate. And that's the number one lesson Pat Summitt taught. You have to communicate. And the second part of it, I believe that I found now that I'm in corporate America, you have to empower people, not dictate to them. People don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be micromanaged. It tells them that you don't believe in them and you don't think they know how to do it on their own. But when you empower them, that is using communication in a persuasive way to make them realize the philosophy you're trying to get them to buy into. If you can get them to buy in, you can teach them anything.
Right.
And you empower them from there.
Yep. I got to ask a court question here. November 30th, 2000, you become the first woman to dunk in a nationally televised game. Do you enter a game thinking, today I want to dunk? Was it in the profile for you and you were just looking for the right opportunity, right time?
That is one of the funniest stories because Pat was sending someone to the bench once again to take me out the game. Mad as heck at me. I wasn't denying the high post, which is something we do at Tennessee. We deny every spot, every possession. I took a play off. The consequence, you're out the game. She was so hot. She said, go get her. And I heard her. And I was like, oh, crap. And I went for the steal and I got it by the grace of God. And at that point, I was like, well, you're coming out anyway. You might as well go ahead and go for it. And I just went for it. And the clock was going out for halftime. And she comes in the locker room and, you know, everybody's waiting to see what Pat's going to say, right? And she goes, nice steal.
Nice steal. She didn't mention the dunk.
Didn't mention the dunk at all. And I loved it because her point was this led to the dunk.
Right.
And I got what she was saying. You'll get more opportunities if you buy in. So buy in. It was the most shocking thing because everyone's expecting her to celebrate. And that's the master psychologist. She knew exactly what to say so that it would happen again and again. And it did.
I love it.
And the best part wasn't dunking. It was the crowd jumping to their feet in amazement. Like they were astonished. They were in awe. And you could see it on their faces. My teammates jumping up and down and celebrating. That's the best part. That was my favorite part of that.
I mean, one of the things that's so valuable in that discussion is that we should be constantly looking for ways to celebrate each other.
Absolutely.
There's unique things happening all the time. in our organizations, and the ability on a reasonably regular basis to take a moment and say, wow, you just did something worthy of a pause. That's big. It's big time.
Yes, great leaders. They're going to listen first, not talk. Then they're going to find something in there that they align with, believe in, and they're going to praise that. That allows people to open up more. You get to know them deeper. And when people feel valued, seen, and heard, they're going to open up and be empowered by you. So the goal is always not to talk, but to actually listen.
Wow. So part of your conversation with an audience is about transforming yourself consistently, constantly finding the next iteration. What does 3.0, 4.0 look like? You make the ultimately the transition from the court. You decide it's time to hang up your sneakers and you're going to now make your way into the corporate world. Now, give me a lesson that you learned that has made you more effective in the huddles that are business meetings.
I like to do, 15 or 30-minute huddles with people within the company each day and have a few of them each week. As a team, we do one weekly. Then it just grows from there. I think every company has huddles. The point of those huddles is, once again, listen, do not talk. These are the people who have their feet on the ground. They're immersed in working with the product or the service or the consumer. They know it better than anyone because they're hands on every single day. And as you become a leader, you start to understand that you need to listen so that you can adapt to what the consumer wants, to what the buying behaviors are, to how the products or services are being received. It's just like you have that employee that can see things coming because they're talking to that consumer on a daily basis. So when you're listening, you're able to hear things and see things before they happen, and you can adapt a little faster. Great companies take it a step further. COVID taught many of them this. If everything shuts down, if the way businesses run changes tomorrow, are we equipped? And in order to figure that out, you have to go sit, talk, and listen and see how can we make the company more agile? How are we more adaptable? How do we teach our people to recreate that control chaos, if you will, that allows people to continue to flourish and never become comfortable?
Most people think of their huddles as leader conversation, like, and you're saying they should be leader listens.
Yes.
What kind of questions are you asking to prompt the team to give you the data points you need?
When I first came into corporate America, the one thing I knew was that I didn't know anything. Like, listen, I knew I don't know anything. So I'm reaching out to people within the organization. And one of the questions I'm asking is, one, how did you navigate your journey? I want to listen to their story. I want to understand who they are, where they come from. Once I get their story, you're obviously going to find things that you align on, which makes it easier. You talk about that for a little while, and then you also bring it into corporate America. And I always ask them, how can I make your job easier? That's all I got to ask. How can I make your job easier? This is my role. This is your role. How do I accommodate you? And a lot of people don't want to ask that. They want to ask, hey, how do I get your job? How do I become the number one person? Never ask about you, ask about them. How can you serve them? They will give you what you need. You don't have to ask or worry about that. And the reaction was, thank you for asking.
And you're asking these questions of people who are both above and below you on the org chart.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things I found was most people weren't asking that question. Thank you for asking, because most people try to dictate. They come in, that alpha personality. Well, I've done this, I've done that, I got this, I got that. And we try to prove that we're worthwhile and that we are dominant and that we know what to do. Transparency. Shoptai taught me that. Just be transparent. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm new here. I truly need your help. Can you tell me how your journey was? Can you tell me a little bit about how you navigated Nike? Can you tell me how I can support you? Can you tell me what is your role and what are the things that you're responsible for on a day-to-day basis? Now I fully understand how they operate and what they need.
And then you're looking for commonalities, places where your stories have some connection.
Alignment, always.
And then you're bringing it in for a landing with, how can I make your job easier?
Yes. And for some people, it was, can you come and speak to the team? Sure. I'll do a fireside chat or whatever you need me to do. Hey, could you participate in this focus group we have? It's about athletes. We need to know more. Hey, I got some other athletes that I can bring with me. Now you are helping them. And another mentor always told me it's great to have a favor owed, not to owe favors. So you always want to do for others when they need things done. They won't hesitate when you need something in return.
Great to have a favor owed, not to owe favors. I love that. I read a amazing quote from you in which you talked about your father. Your dad would tell you all the time, you work out too much, you push yourself all the time. And your response back to him was, that's why I'm successful. That's the point. I'm going to outwork everyone. Most people are not going to put in the time. Now that's funny. It's almost like you coaching your dad out in its own way. How do you teach that lesson to others today?
When I speak with younger groups, I walk in, they're going to look at what you have on. Kids are all about what you're wearing. It's one of the reasons I wear sneakers to my events. Even when speaking to in corporate America, I do the same thing.
I won't mention that they were Nikes.
Oh, I'm just saying. But I think it gives you what we call a whatchamacallit. Whatchamacallit is when you are wearing or you have something on, whether it's your hair, your glasses, jewelry, something that makes people go, oh, that's nice. That's different. It's intended to stand out because it opens the door for communication.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can network with people that you don't know. It makes you approachable.
Mm.
How to win friends and influence people. That's one of the things they teach you. Find the whatchamacallit.
Uh-huh.
And for me, it's sneakers. I go on stage and I'll have that on. And the first thing kids are going to do is, ooh, those are this. And I know that shoe, blah, blah, blah. How do I get it? It gets them talking. If you have people talking, they're now inviting you into their space and you've disarmed them. Because what is the one thing a kid doesn't want to hear? We need to talk. I don't think any adult wants to hear that in a relationship. So it allows you to kind of disarm them, invite them in. And the one thing I'll tell them is I was like, listen, guys, I'm going to be here. We're going to talk about a few things. I'm going to tell you my journey and my story. It's going to be funny. We're going to have funny stories in there. We're going to have some that make them think like, hey, regardless of where your situation is or where you come from, it's still possible. Stop saying it's not possible. Here's how you get there. Let me give you practical steps. And at the end, I open it up for questions. Never fails. How big is your TV? What kind of car do you drive? Do you have this shoe? And I'll just shake my head. It happens every time. And guys, I can tell you guys are intelligent. I know that you work hard and you understand what to do, but you don't get it. And they'll look disappointed now. I'll be like, you're asking the wrong questions. You're asking me what I have. How does that help you get it? You're not asking me what did I do on a day-to-day basis. Every single day, here's my schedule. Here are the 3 questions I ask myself every single day. It's that simple. If you want to make it, have a schedule where you allot time every day to the thing that matters to you the most. And then I'm going to give you 3 questions that you can ask that will allow you to see if you're actually doing what you said you would do. What went well today? What could I have done better? And what do I commit to doing tomorrow?
Wow, I like that.
Don't be the person that talks, but never backs up what they say.
I love it.
And those 3 questions, you got to look yourself in the mirror and ask those 3 questions. You can lie to everybody, but you can't lie to yourself.
Right.
And they're very strategic. What went well, you got to put it on a high note. You always start with what went well. What did you do? What are you grateful for? What did you get done? Then you hit yourself with the core question. What can you improve on? What didn't you get done? What didn't you do as efficiently as you could have? Coach says you don't get to come and do a practice over. It's done. You missed that opportunity. So if you didn't bring 100%, you lose out. Same if you're in corporate America giving a presentation or talking, whatever it is, you get one try. There's no rewind button. And then the third one is, what do you commit to doing better? So although you may have failed and come up short, which I bombed a presentation once, and thankfully it was a practice presentation, which allowed me to show up really well for the actual one. So I either journal it or either I do it in the mirror. One of the two. Either one works for me. The mirror, I like better. I do like the journal because I feel like I got to keep some things in there so I have something to look back on.
Right.
But then the mirror, it's like you're looking into the windows of your soul.
Wow.
No one is there but you. And you have to look at yourself.
And be honest.
Yeah, you have to be honest. And some days you're going to smile and be overjoyed and dancing in the mirror. And there have been many days where I was there and there were some tears, and sometimes where I was on the floor because there was no one that I could blame but me. I didn't show up. It allows you to find out where your deficiencies are and how to get better, especially if you surrounded yourself with people who are where you want to be, because they can see your blind spots versus you trying to figure it out on your own. And that's what I told the kids. Same in sports, same in your career goals that you have. Whatever your dream is, this applies across the board to any and everyone.
You know, you had such gold when you were talking to kids who look at you and say, how big's your TV? What kind of car do you drive? And you made the point, they're asking the wrong questions, right? You're asking what I have, not what it took to get there.
Absolutely.
Now, that's a great conversation with kids, but it's an equally good conversation with grown-ups
Yes.
and our adult teammates, because sometimes it's human nature
Yes.
with a level of jealousy of, gosh, why does she have that promotion? Why is she in that role? Or why is he getting that job? You're looking at what they have instead of what they did. You feel to me to be the ultimate counselor. You've gone from the shy little girl that wouldn't look at anybody in the eye to now you're counseling everybody. How are you counseling professionals in your world about this exact same thing? Ask the right questions and listen, not just about what they have, new job, new this, new that, but what they did to get there.
There's a third eye of discernment.
The third eye of discernment.
There's one thing I learned, that prayer I told you about. When I make it, I'm going to go back and get others. The third eye allows you to see, and it can be very painful because now you can see things that you couldn't see when you were that young child. You can go back and try to get someone, but you can't move someone that doesn't want to move. You can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves. That's the hardest part. You can pour into someone all you want. If they're not receptive, you are wasting your time and energy. You have to sit back and say, I get where they are. I've been there we've all been there in some area of our lives. We all feel that we know certain things and we're experts at certain things, and we all have ignorances, things that we just don't know. So I find it interesting when people say stupid question or they're ignorant, and I go, we're all ignorant. But that's the compare and justify. We do it to make ourselves feel better. Is that appropriate? Is that the best solution? Is that going to reach someone if I come at you and say, hey, I know you do the podcast. You've been doing it. You've interviewed all these people. You've written all these books, but let me give you some advice. You're going to look at me crazy. You're going to look at me and be like, first, what credibility do you have? Number one, not that you can't get advice from anyone. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's how we do it. It's how you say things. And someone had to teach me that I needed to say things in a better way. And for me, it's a journey from like being that shy young lady who would just blurt it out so I could get it out of the way, to learning how to say it with love from a place where you're coming from empowerment and you're listening. You can see and hear them and you know exactly what they need to hear because you were listening to their story. You weren't trying to speak over them. You weren't trying to get to the next question. You genuinely got to know that person.
Wow.
But most people, sometimes we talk at people and not to them. And some people say that's not my job. And I go, well, good luck getting to the top without being by yourself.
Wow, that's really good.
Second piece of that is diversity too. Some people get to the top, but everyone looks like them, acts like them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that takes away creativity because everyone thinks the same. You have blind spots because you refuse to get to know, talk to, and grow with people who are different than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the bigger groups who are able to reach across the board, it's because they're diverse. They believe in inclusion, they listen, they learn, they adapt. And all of them are growing as a result of that. And that's when your team grows and the company grows.
I'd say the part of that I've grown to truly appreciate, especially as a business leader and as somebody trying to learn so much in the last couple of years, is not just diversity, but inclusion. Because it's one thing to say, ooh, I need to make sure that I'm being careful and making sure all my chess pieces look right. They're all different and everything. But if they're not included, it doesn't matter. What a difference it is, and a great wake up for so many leaders to have start really putting that piece together as well.
Absolutely. One of the best pieces for that is if you have a diverse team or if you have that person who doesn't speak, that's more reserved, ask, hey, what do you think?
Right.
And that's something we do in each meeting. We ask what everyone thinks. Hey, if you're not comfortable standing in front of everyone, send it in an email. That's fine as well. But the door is always open for your point of view and your voice to be heard because it matters. And sometimes the alphas can kind of take over the room and the loudest person ends up having the ability to speak. And sometimes everyone just falls in line because they're speaking the loudest. But is that the best way to make sure we have the most efficient and the best plan of action, that we're maximizing our opportunity? Because if the reserved me can't speak, you might miss out on all these nuggets.
Right. See, sometimes you just have to draw people out. Louder is not better.
No.
I love it. You have an online course, which Brian on our team actually had a chance to go through to try to figure out what lessons we could take and ask you about, because we want to be able to direct people in the show notes to that course. But you talk about brilliant brainstorming and why it's an essential skill for business leaders. Talk to me about brilliant brainstorming. Walk me through that process in a way that those who are listening today can learn from you about how you use that model.
It really goes back to what I just said with the three questions. What went well today? What could I have done better? And what do I commit to doing tomorrow? It is, how do you hold yourself accountable? How do you position yourself to be able to say, okay, here's what I have. Here are the opportunities allotted to me. How do I maximize those so that we can have the best foundation possible? Because if you don't have a foundation, you don't have anything to grow off of. There's no scaling, there's no sustainability. So you got to figure out, how do I seed this idea? I got to be able to plant it and watch it grow. But I could put Kool-Aid on that seed, it's not going to grow. Seeds need water. So when you do brilliant brainstorming, it's all about, one, finding someone who's where you want to be, who can tell you exactly what you should be doing for this seed. How do I grow this business? How do I grow this idea? And what are all the steps involved? And now that we know what the process is, how do I put actionable steps on each one with a deadline?
Mhm.
That's brilliant brainstorming.
You know, in the breakdown of brilliant brainstorming, an element of it that was so important was that you have to listen well. And that's a lost art, the art of listening and actually actively listening, as opposed to preparing yourself immediately to ask the next question. How do you teach that art of listening to others? Is there a way that you focus on that for others?
It connects back to the why. Simon Sinek's greatest book I've had a chance to read is The Why, getting down to the nitty gritty of why are you doing it. It was why Pat did the Myers-Briggs. Michelle, who do you want to be? A businesswoman? You're going to hate me for the next 4 years, but I'm going to get you there. Once you know a person's why, and you can find a way to align that with your philosophy, they will listen because there's something in it for them. Has to be something in it for the individual, something in it for the team, and something in it for the business. And it has to be aligned across the board. I'm not listening if all you're doing is talking about what the company needs and what they need to grow. And if we don't get it done, here are the consequences. But if you say that in a different way, hey guys, we've all talked about our individual goals. And as a team, I want to empower everyone to get to the next level within their journey on the corporate ladder. In order to do that as a team, we have to do this. As a team, if we can come up with these goals here that align with the company goals and we can reach them, everyone else reaches their goals. Now they're open to listening. Once you get the individual and they have their goals, they know what they want, the team is aligned on their goals, and now you connect that with the business, there's a reciprocal flow up and down. And they won't always be in alignment.
Right.
But there's always something that aligns. Whether it's, I want to be able to make sure I have money in 2 weeks with my paycheck to provide for my family. My first job was working at Albertsons at the grocery store. I didn't want to be hauling groceries outside. I actually grew to enjoy it and love it. But initially I was like, we all want the highest paying, nice, fancy jobs. Wasn't an issue. But you got to learn that sometimes you got to do whatever you have to do in order to make it for the time being. And when you do it to the best of your ability, there are skills in every single job, whether it's learning how to respect every single person that you meet, how to have those conversations with them. And for me, to come out of my shyness.
Mm.
There's a lesson in everything that you do. I believe that God puts you exactly where you're supposed to be. The question you should be asking is not, what can this job do for you? How does this help you get ahead? It should be, what is this lesson trying to teach me? Because until you get that lesson, every job, every relationship, everything that you go through will be telling you the same thing until you sit back and listen. So everything aligns, and it's just getting people to buy in. I didn't want to go from being the point guard who ran the team to the post player who's always told what to do. It was quite different, but it gave me a viewpoint from start to finish of how a team is run. Because now you see post players running the game in the floor from the post position, from the four, and you realize the point guard could be at any position. They just have to understand how to communicate and bring everyone together. You can't bring them together if you're not empowering and pouring into each one individually.
Wow, that's good.
If your team is not listening, you're not pouring into them. Maybe you're pouring into them what they should be doing so that the business wins and the team wins. Are you pouring into them, the individual?
Michelle, how can people find you?
You can find me online, super easy. Facebook, Miss Michelle Snow. Instagram, Michelle Snow 2. And then my website, Michelle Snow 360. And it just gives the 360-degree view of who I am as an athlete, a businesswoman, and then, also on the personal development side. And I would love to actually send the Brilliant Brainstorm training to everyone. I'll put it together, get it on there for them, and then shoot you the link so my team can get that done for you.
Absolutely. We will put it in our show notes. Thank you. What a great gift. It's been such an honor learning from you. Thank you today, Michelle, for being with us as a corporate competitor.
Thank you. You guys have a good one.
My gosh, if there was a more power-packed window of time, I am not sure when that would be. Michelle Snow, what a ball of energy. Boy, she taught me lessons. Right from the very beginning, she's talking about that there are, in fact, negative thoughts in our minds, but she just works to replace those thoughts. She is intentional. I love the word intention. It's an important word, in my opinion. She was very intentional in everything she does about replacing those negative thoughts with positive ones. She learned playing at Tennessee that the court should never be silent. Communication was the key, and that they had to constantly be allowing each other to know as a team on the court what was happening, to become woven together as a fabric, a unit in a way that their opponents couldn't. The lesson from Pat Summitt, her legendary coach, put her through the Myers-Briggs test to understand what Michelle really wanted to walk away from her Tennessee experience with. And when she realized that she wanted to be a businesswoman, Pat Summitt could teach her how to dribble and teach her how to shoot. But boy, she could do so much more, understanding that where Michelle needed and wanted truly to go was in the world of business. And she put her in those places. I loved her line, "You're only by yourself because you didn't take someone with you." And that a true driver for Michelle Snow is that she is constantly reaching back to make sure that she is bringing others along. One of my favorite pieces was when she talked about her mentoring sessions, her lessons with other people who seem sometimes enamored with all that she has. Sometimes those people are younger and they want to know how big her TV is and what kind of car she drives. And she stops them to say, "You're asking the wrong questions. Don't ask me what I have. Ask me how I got it. Let me go through my daily schedule. And let me tell you what sacrifice looks like and what it takes to get those things." Boy, what a great stopping point that can be for all the rest of us. Too often we're caught up. There's a little jealousy even in some of our thought processes around other people, what they've achieved or what they seem to have. Instead of just being happy for them in that sense, we need to sit down and ask ourselves, what did they do to get what they have? And if we are willing to make the same sacrifices, the odds begin to stack in our favor. And then her conversations that she has when she comes into a new job, in which the final question, as she looks at these people that she's admitting she doesn't really know what she is up against, and she says, "How can I make your job easier?" Wow. Gosh, wouldn't we all love to have a new teammate come along and ask that question? You can see why Michelle Snow is so successful in everything she does and in all that she touches, and why she was such an impactful guest both to me and I hope to you here on Corporate Competitor. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir.
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399, but for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll. Thanks for listening to the show. I would be so grateful if you left us a rating and a review. We will be rolling out a new episode every Wednesday. To be the first to listen, subscribe to the podcast on our website, corporatecompetitorpodcast.com. Plus, as a thank you gift, you will receive a free chapter from one of my best-selling books on the habits of high-performing teams. Stay in touch by connecting with me on social media at Don Yeager, Yaeger, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next week, I appreciate you.